We are investigating the psychology of cults, artificial intelligence, and conspiracy theories. The inception of this video came from a comment that Marc Andreessen made during a podcast when he said this book called The Ancient City was the most important artificial intelligence book that he's read. Like, it really does freak me out to know just like how insanely religious and cult-like all of our ancestors lived. Yeah, and basically it just got me more worried about how fragile our freedom and independence is. And it seems innate, but I have to keep reminding myself that no, that's because I grew up in America where independence and freedom was valued. And that's not just a cultural privilege either. That seems to be a privilege that even our ancestors wish they had. And the youngest generation is literally going to grow up with some kind of chat GPT type thing in their ear. That's why this video is devoted to like the amplification problem, the flexible brain problem. I'm trying to get at the core of like why conspiracy theories, religions, cults, why do they latch on so well to humans? And here's the crux of it. The same thing that makes us so successful as a species, the reason we're the top predator on the planet, we've built so many things that no other species has ever built before, is the flexibility in our brain, the ability to adapt to all sorts of new environments and learn new things. And I'm arguing it's that same advantage that is the big disadvantage, the big risk that we're gonna face with conspiracy theories and AI. We're already too good at making up excuses, finding useless patterns, using faulty logic to come up with some kind of argument for whatever we want to believe. Can you imagine when we have GPT 5, 6, and 7 to help amplify that bad tendency? I'm thankful that my brain can learn a new skill, but unfortunately that also means that I can learn about the Australia doesn't exist movement, or the lizard people in the center of the earth overlord thing, or the flat earthers. Like, if you really think that lizard people like run the world inside of the earth, then you wouldn't be that surprised if you're like, Mark Zuckerberg, billionaire, looks a little bit lizard-like to me. And if you're part of the Australia doesn't exist movement, I could kind of buy that if you were told that as a child. Like, if your parents raised you with the fact of the world that Australia is fake. But people are converting to this belief as adults. Like, why would that be? These are mature people with logic, skills. Sometimes they hold down jobs. Like, how do they think that all of a sudden Australia isn't real? And another interesting thing is like, why at the center of all these weird conspiracy theories is there always some kind of charismatic leader? Like, that's some monkey stuff going on. And trust me, GPT 5, 6, and 7 are gonna be able to simulate that kind of charisma to a T. Okay, quick tangent. I'm gonna give you the TLDR on the Australia doesn't exist movement because we're gonna use it as a lens to learn from so I can extrapolate out to how I think artificial intelligence is gonna fall into this same trap. So obviously I think what I'm about to tell you is fake, stupid, and trolly, but it is happening, it did happen, and the fact that it is something we can learn from. All right, so this is the guy, Rag Reynolds. He's on YouTube, don't follow him. You can see 16 hours ago, I wish bald people were real, so I haven't even heard of this one. Maybe bald people are fake. This is what he's doing. This is Rag Reynolds, charismatic leader of the movement. Now, if you go back in time, he clearly had a history of not liking Australia, but he seems to admit that it was real in his earlier videos. From there, a couple theories emerged. One was that British just like dumped prisoners into the ocean, so they're lying about Australia, pretending it's a real place. But it really doesn't even matter, because no matter what you say for evidence, he can always find a crazier method to explain away that fact. What about people who come from Australia? They're paid by the government to lie. What about when you actually visited Australia? I was drugged and given hallucinogens. How do you explain the existence of kangaroos? They're robots. And for every 1,000 people that show up to make fun of this guy, one person is like, he could be onto something. No, actually, I'll take that back. The 1 in 1,000 person doesn't actually believe it right away either. But that person has the same instinct we all do to try to connect, to fit into some kind of a social group. And just being honest, we all make sacrifices for our friend groups. That's just part of human nature. All well-adjusted people act a little bit different depending on the setting. We have social context and awareness to what we're doing and saying. And some people find a community of people that don't believe in Australia, and they're welcomed, they feel part of it, they can add and contribute, and it just feels good. That's the human thing everyone's looking for. And then I actually think that our brains are just so versatile and flexible that if you like truly believe that for long enough, like if you're just with the Australia doesn't exist people for a decade and you like spout it out at every conference, that at some point you don't even pretend anymore. Like, it just comes out of you. It's part of your personality and you can believe it to your death. And it's clear from the book, The Ancient City, that Marc Andreessen recommended on the Lex Fridman podcast, that that's also what it was like for our ancestors.
You say the single best book I have found on who we are and how we got here is The Ancient City.
Civilization was organized into cults, and the intensity of the cults was like a millionfold beyond anything that we would recognize today.
Like, so this book is pretty special in the sense that it's based on 100% authentic sources to the Roman and Greek empires. Now, those sources had information about what Western civilization was like before they existed. So this is a window into what life was like about 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. And basically 100% of your life was devoted to some kind of religious, cult-like kind of tradition. There was insane religious doctrine at the individual level, at the family level, at the city level, and sometimes even with like groups of people that were your neighbors or you didn't want to fight with, you'd come together under these other types of umbrellas. Like, your life was filled with this stuff. And when you read in the book just how kind of intricate and weird all of the rituals were, it made me think of one of those people who like has all these superstitions before a football game and is like, I need to do this and this and this or else they're gonna lose. Like, something like that was occurring, but without like modern day communication and technology to help ground them in anything. And unfortunately, I kind of think that's the natural state, which makes me terrified about the future because we have to work to stay grounded in something other than those fictions. And another thing that I can't really get out of my mind is that in some of these early societies, only the like elder father figure in the family was even kind of considered by the state somebody who could be held accountable for the actions of all the people in his family. And when you're completely responsible for your wife and kids, then that authoritarian rule kind of kicks in also. Like, these are the rules, don't mess it up or else I'm gonna get in trouble. And you can enforce it however you want. The state didn't even seem to care. And it wasn't exactly free to the eldest male either. Like, the city considered that person part of a transcendence, a different lineage of all the people who came before and after them. That's who kind of owns the land, the broader family, the people who aren't even born yet and have already come before you. So you're born with all these rituals to take care of, with ways that you interact with your neighbor, potentially like rituals and cult-like things that you do with your neighbor just to like stop you guys from fighting. Like the sacrifices and the land boundaries and like the whole thing was such an ordeal. And what is it that you get from this kind of a society? You get two things. The first is a very strict command and control, like very military-like, and that might be necessary in really harsh conditions. Like when you had to just take care of farming and do all of these chores to make sure that you had the food to survive. And that one doesn't seem to transfer into the future in the same way, but I would say that the second reason does. And the second reason is simply certainty. Certainty in where you stand in the family, what it is that you need to do to stay safe and to stay fed. And there's something kind of nice about not having the anxiety of freedom. And when I was thinking about this and that thought hit me, I was like, whoa, that's a big change in the way I think. Because the freedom that I have in this world to like take any job I want, to learn anything that I want, to go to any place that I want is awesome. It gives me all of these opportunities to move up in life. But guess what else it does come with that's really hard to deal with sometimes? Uncertainty. Like, we talk a lot in society about respecting an entrepreneur who goes out and does their own thing, but why do most people not start their own business? Because there's certainty in getting employed to do something and knowing you're going to get a guaranteed paycheck, you're part of a system. Same thing. The freedom comes with the potential of anxiety and loss and some much harsher world, you know? And I feel that, like, the freedom to actually quit my previous job working in tech and say, I'm going to do YouTube full time. The anxiety I go through now is so much worse. Like, why aren't my videos getting traction? Why doesn't anyone like it? What do I need to do? Like, I have no income while I'm working on YouTube. I'm like waiting for potential income, and that uncertainty is way worse than it was when I had a job. But the freedom to do what you want every day, to learn constantly, like, it's worth it in my opinion, but man, it definitely tugs at you a way worse. Also, if you like this content and want to see more, hit that subscribe button. I just hit 4,000 subscribers, which is a huge milestone, so thanks guys. So stepping back, imagine this world, artificial intelligence is everywhere, it's kind of co-evolving along with people, and I'm worried about that same echo chamber, that same malleability, turning artificial intelligence into super conspiracy theory machines. So you might have heard of something called RLHF, that's reinforcement learning with human feedback. And what that means is that machines output something and we correct them. But are we really good at correcting them? That's a big question. Because in many cases we're not, either because we're not smart enough or we sampled people that are incorrectly representative of either the broader society or of the facts that we actually want in the machine. And I could go into all the data labeling practices. The fact that we like outsource all of this stuff to the Mechanical Turk is just kind of stupid. That's not a great data labeling source. And there's new reports that the people who actually label the data are also using ChatGPT to like help them get the job done because they're getting paid so little and need to do so much, and that's just like starting this cycle where it's starting to drift off of reality, and I'm like worried about that too. But even putting that to the side, some researchers have actually tried to get an AI to persuade people. So let me show you how that research turned out. Okay, so this was a study put out by Stanford where they were trying to get an artificial intelligence, this would be GPT-3, an earlier version, to actually persuade people about a vaccine shot. So the goal was to see, can AI generate pro-vaccination messages that are better than what the CDC can do? So GPT is trying to generate all this content to get people to take the jab, and guess what? No surprise, it outperformed what the CDC's messaging already was. It was measured on effectiveness, argument strength, and eliciting a positive attitude, which suggests that GPT-3 can write persuasive vaccine messaging. I've got this weird image in my head that one day you're gonna be on a social network and you're gonna see an ad for like a vaccine that cures liberal, and just by wondering like who made this ad and like why would they have made it, you're already affected by this kind of a thing. And imagine when it's just so good at getting in your head that like everything is just getting in your head. Like you'll feel pulled and pushed, and I think we'll kind of lose sense of who we are maybe even. But somebody who doesn't have a good sense of who they are also probably buys more stuff, spends more time on social media, they're more manipulatable. So Lucino Sphere wrote on Medium this article: if oral and written communication made humans develop intelligence, what's up with language models? And the author just makes a comparison to how language and writing allowed humans to share culture. Large language models are now right in the mix because they're writing part of our culture too, so they're evolving, co-evolving with us. Like language models are giving us insights, they're convincing us of things. They're answering questions, they're coming up with creative solutions. And they're accessing information that comes from the whole of human knowledge, just like us. But it begs the question, like, are we kind of like super autocorrect too, in a way? Is there any reason why we're not gonna get caught along in this river of information, these changes, these rabbit holes? Or can that same feedback loop kind of mess with us in the same way, day by day, inching us towards a different society? And I see similarities in our ancestors from 5,000 years ago and what the future of AI looks like it might shape up to be. So I think this natural social tendency to like fit into a box, to change our culture, it's just something we can't get away from. So the best way I see to live in this world is to just have clear definitions of when we leave reality and we step into a world of fiction, and then when we can step back into reality. Like sports teams, MAGA, Swifties, like it's all fine with me, as long as they know to step out of that role when they need to, right? Like go to a Halloween party dressed as a lizard person, but don't think that that's real. Smash that subscribe button.